60% in South Carolina, which is your strongest state. I mean, Wall Street Journal editorial page this morning has a point. If you before we get into the news, I know a lot of people have been talking about South Carolina, but I think the Wall Street Journal editorial page has it right here. Let me read it. Yet Ms. Haley won nearly 40% of the vote, which, as she said in her remarks Saturday evening, is not some tiny group. That's especially true running against a quasi-incumbent who was endorsed by nearly every GOP official in the state. None of them want to risk getting primaried. Yet, as in New Hampshire, the size of her vote shows that millions in the Republican Party do not want Mr. Trump in the White House. A Fox News voter analysis found that 59% of Ms. Haley's voters said they would not vote for Trump. Let me say that again. 59% of Haley's voters said they would not vote for Trump if he's the GOP nominee. And the exit poll showed that 36% of all Republican South Carolina voters said a conviction in one of his criminal trials would make him unfit to be president. So even if most of those voters hold their noses and vote for Trump in a race against Mr. Biden, the question is, how many stay home, vote for a third party, or go over to Mr. Biden? Even a 10% defection could be divisive and decisive. If Mr. Trump can't win over more of her voters, he could make Ms. Haley a prophet, of course. And they're talking about when she said, if Donald Trump wins, we're going to lose. And let me just real quickly go to John Heilman before we jump into the news here. John, you've got a guy that's about to win the nomination for the third time, and he's losing 50% of the Republican vote in Iowa, 40% of it in South Carolina, which we've always said is the strongest state. And so, yeah, I mean, if I'm running for the first time and I'm getting 59%, I'm happy. If I'm basically a three-time incumbent, those are the real warning signs. You know, we hear people warning about Donald Trump, and I certainly get it. He is a threat to American democracy. But right now, 40% of his electorate is a threat to him even getting there.
Well, yeah, Joe, I'll point we have a reasonable comparative point here. The Democratic primary in South Carolina took place quite recently, not the same day as the Republican primary. Joe Biden, the incumbent president, Donald Trump, as you point out, kind of a quasi-incumbent. Everybody says he has an iron grip on the Republican Party. Joe Biden won 96.2% of the vote in the Democratic primary. Marianne Williamson and Dean Phillips, his two challengers, combined got about 5,000 votes, about 4%, whereas Nikki Haley got 298,681 votes for about 40%. So, I mean, it's not apples and oranges. Joe Biden is an actual incumbent. Trump's a quasi-incumbent. Trump, however, has run in South Carolina 3 times. He ran in 2016, 2020, and now this time. So, there is a, if you talk about who has an iron grip over his party, who has total control over the party, who has the loyalty of the base of the party.
Trump.
It's not Donald Trump compared to Joe Biden, and it's certainly not Donald Trump compared to even where Donald Trump has been in the past in South Carolina. So, look, I mean, all of those exit polls you cited should be worrying for Trump. There's also financial stuff we can talk about that it should be worrying for Trump. That's not down the road. That's coming real soon. Right. That was not an unalloyed. Look, give the man the win. He's won 3. You can't take that away from him. A win's a win. He's going to be the nominee. He's going to probably have the 12, 15 delegates by the middle of March. But man, if you don't see the warning signs, if Chris LaSavita and the people around him do not see the warning signs, and they are smart people, and I'm sure that he and Susie Wiles, they see it. They're pretty clear.
Smart people. They want him out of the race. I mean, they want her out of the race, and for good reason. And for good reason, they want her out of the race. But Mika, I'll give you again a couple of numbers here, and I will say I have said this before, and I got enough problems on Morning Joe. Like, I'm just trying to avoid flop sweat. Mika will tell you I'm a flop sweater.
I
just am. I'm a big guy. I sweat all the time.
Oh. Yeah.
So I'm just trying, to not look like Elvis 77 every day. So I don't want to judge other news outlets. I will just say I've been surprised, Mika, by the alerts that I get when Donald Trump smashes Haley for victory or whatever. And a couple of weeks ago, I think it was New Hampshire, Donald Trump routes. Wasn't it? You know, we're hearing Trump's going to win by 30, 35 points in South Carolina. How long have we heard that? We heard he's going to win by 30 points forever. Again, he always underperforms as far as margin of victory in the polls. Always does. And yet, this was supposed to be a 30-point win. It ended up being a 20-point win. But again, that's not the issue here for Donald Trump. If you're Chris or Susie inside his campaign, what you're concerned about, or what I would be concerned about, I don't want to speak for them. What I'd be concerned about is she won 40% of the vote, but here we go. Fox News voter analysis found that 59% of her voters, 59%, said they would not vote for Donald Trump if he's the GOP nominee. And 36% of all South Carolina Republican voters said a conviction in just one of his criminal trials would make him unfit to be president. Now, why am I underlining this? I'm underlining this because I've been saying on the show for months now that what I've been hearing from my Republican relatives, my Republican friends, from Republicans who voted for Donald Trump twice over the last summer, over the last year. You'll remember, I won't say his name, reveal him, but a member of my family who voted for Donald Trump twice sat with us last summer and said that he and his friends in I'll just say a suburb, a contested suburb, always voted Republican, will not vote for him, will leave the slot open. And again, these were hardcore Trumpers who, you know, I'll just say, really concerned me in 2020 when they voted for him again. They're gone. And so when you see these numbers that, you know, a third are saying they're not going to vote for Donald Trump, that's where it's starting to show up. Well, and that is something the Trump campaign's going to have to focus on between here and the end of the year.
You mentioned Fox News exit polling. There's, you know, different exit polls that have potential trouble ahead that's even more for Donald Trump in a likely general election rematch with Joe Biden. As Politico points out, Trump lost moderate and liberal voters to Haley by a wide margin, citing exit polling from the Associated Press. In addition, a little over 1 in 5 GOP primary voters said they would not vote for Trump in November if he was the party's nominee. When asked by NBC News, 81% of Nikki Haley supporters said their vote was more of a vote against Trump than it was for Haley. Haley also beat Trump with college-educated voters, 54% to 45%. 36% of all voters also said they would consider Trump unfit for office if he is convicted of a crime by Election Day. And despite Trump's continued efforts to push the big lie, 36% of Republican primary voters said Joe Biden was legitimately elected in 2020.
I'm sorry, who are the Nimrods that are 61%? I mean, come on. Who are those people, Matt Lewis? Let's talk about our former party, my former party. Who are the Nimrods, 61%, that still can say that with a straight face?